Welcome to Wake and Wellness. Today we have another amazingly transformative episode for you guys, and I'm very excited to get into it. I started thinking of different ideas, and this one just popped up almost sort of like a joke, but it was more in a playful way that I wanted to deliver it today. So we're gonna go over 10 different things or spiritual aspects that I wish I would have been told when I had first began my spiritual journey. And hopefully this episode expands beyond just the beginner spiritualist and goes into the intermediate as well as those who have been on their spiritual journey much longer than that. And so I hope that this really reaches and speaks to a very vast amount of different spiritualists, no matter where you are in your journey. So I got my cheat sheet to help me out a little bit. Number one, the spiritual journey is lifelong, eternal, even when we really think about it. And I wish I would have been told that when I, let's say, first began, because even now I have to remind myself of it, and it's been quite a while that I've been on it. And so to have someone tell you that, I think it would have helped me to understand that, okay, I need to slow down. I think a lot of times we get caught in our human day-to-day type of being, as opposed to how the soul actually operates and expands through time by being in the present and being in the now, and is much more wise for able to see a lot further and with a lot more clarity. Understanding that would have helped and saved a lot of heartache that I think a lot of us experience. Of course, that we must through our human experience, but yet we continue to, for not having the clarity or allowing ourselves to open up to the clarity and the awareness to get through that. And so understanding that our spiritual journey is lifelong and eternal can sometimes help us realize that this moment is a lot bigger than we tend to think of it, and it is actually, or I should actually say, smaller than we actually give the magnitude to. It is going to pass like all other things, and it's going to be all right. But instead, we always rush things, as opposed to slow down and say, hey, I need to give patience, I need to give stillness an opportunity, as opposed to always trying to rush and force things, when in a lot of situations, rushing and forcing does not actually aid the situation. It can push us back a bit. Number two, there will always be a healable aspect. There's always going to be something that we can work on. There's always going to be something that we can say, oh, I need to pay more attention to, because we are human. We are perfectly imperfect. So there's always something that we can improve on. And in that, again, just like the last one, as opposed to rushing and trying to just get to, let's say, get to the end, get to this journey, get to the end of this goal, we have to understand to learn to appreciate the process. Because if we never give the process gratitude and appreciation, we're just A to B. This is all that I really I see or give gratitude towards, and that creates a lot of really blindness and a whole bunch of other things that I could say. One, not being grateful for understanding all of it as part of the whole and the aspect, so, or the whole aspect or unit. And so I think having this one is just a little bit like the last one, understanding that there's always something. So work on it, give it time, understand that this is a process. Healing isn't like, okay, I need to work on this, I need to work on my selfishness, and then I need to work on my attitude, and then I need to work on my exercise, then I need to work on, like everything else, it's a process. And even when we do work on these things, we're going to come back into a specific part of that cycle where we then either transcend or go back down. So again, it's just like the last one. We need to learn to slow down and take some time and use patience. Learning compassion is essential to accepting the first two. That one is really good. I it almost really just speaks for itself. Learning compassion is, that's really what I'm talking about when I say that we need to take some time, some patience. I'm saying that we need to learn compassion and learn to actually have a different kind of relationship with ourselves, and not be so hard on ourselves or running ourselves into the ground trying to, again, force and just make this thing happen. Whereas when we sit and we learn to be still, which I have an issue with, I always want to be go, go, go. And my mind is always reflecting that same kind of energy. And so, because of that, I have to remind myself, you need to meditate. And when I do, and I connect with myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought that I was thinking maybe 20 minutes before meditation, but now I can actually see that I was thinking, or I wasn't thinking, or I was thinking on this kind of level. And has nothing to do with where I really need to be thinking. So I really like that. And I love number 3. Number 4, no spiritual journey is exactly the same. I love that, and this is gonna go directly into the next one. So I'm not gonna try to give off give off too much of what the next one is. But no spiritual journey is exactly the same. I say that because I needed to learn that, because after having certain experiences and coming to certain things and sort of wishing that I could I had someone to teach me some of the things that I had experienced, so I would have understood them and maybe either value them more, I knew how to do them again, or further teach others. And so that's why I started desiring to go and teach others. But in that desire, sometimes you know that there are certain paths or certain, let's say, milestones that are hit upon the progress of the journey. But at the same time, you understand that that won't be experienced the exact same across, or even interpreted as the exact same. So in that, I had to learn that. I had to just learn that and reiterate that and go, okay, you can't tell somebody what their journey to source is going to look like, or what their meeting with source is going to look like, or what it feels like exactly. You can hint and give some indication, but when these experiences are happening, we're talking about integration or unfolding or transfiguration. When we're talking about any of these things, you can allude to what it actually means. But everyone understands and knows, especially depending on your level of awareness of what I'm even saying right now. As you hear it, you go, yeah, that's obviously true. But when we're talking about, again, transcendental experiences and inner transformation, then you really start to understand how powerful it is, because to some, this just sounds like words. To others, they're moved because they've been moved in their experience of inner transformation. So it instantly sends them back, and they project back into what it meant to get past a certain roadblock of their consciousness. Maybe you thought, oh, I'm stuck at this kind of peak, or I'm stuck at this kind of peak, whether it be physical, financial, maybe mental, emotional. Whatever you think that blockage is, when you had your experience and that inner transformation unlocked you, and you were able to go, oh my gosh, I'm outside of the paradigm. That's what I am actually awakening or akin to, versus someone who's just listening and just going, oh, you're just talking, you're just saying some words. So I think that's very powerful. And to understand that helped me understand, one, you need to be cautious and just more aware of how you explain or clarify certain things. And again, always always let it be known that these things are not going to exactly probably look the same, even if we may explain them the same later to somebody else after having our experience. But it may be that within our journey, within an inner vision, or within a spiritual quest that you had, or a spiritual awakening, whatever that is, you experienced it a certain way, and you can now, again, allude to or give light to your experience and go, me and my friend had this experience and it seemed different, but now we can explain them as the same. But again, it won't always look the same. So I'm going to use that to segue into the next one so I can explain a little bit more. So number 5, intuition and playful curiosity will be your best practice guide. I love this. And under it, I have, you must experience and develop along the path that feels/is right for you. I love that, because that clarifies, and we're going to clarify a bit on number 4. When I say that, what comes to mind all the time is my spiritual practices. So when I teach people things, and people used to ask how to do certain things, whether it be Tai Chi, yoga, meditate, or anything, I always say, as you can find this on Google if you type in how to meditate. Meditate for one is a great example. So we're gonna stick with that. Some people will go, so I had a friend that just asked me about it, and I started to tell her what I did. And so let's say a type of meditation. So let's say I said a mantra meditation, right? And I started going into all these details, and then she said, well, actually what I meant was like, do you sit down, do you lay down? And so that already explains the understanding that there are so many different ways to do one thing. And a lot of times when we talk about these things, people go, oh, well, I don't know how to meditate, or they think that one way is the right way to meditate, or and it's not. And it brings up a confusion that really puts up that wall block, or as Bob Proctor called it, the terror barrier, and you go, oh, well, I don't know how to do it. And this is the I don't know how to do it. You run into it, you don't break through because you go, I don't know. You may not even really want to address it, but really you went head on. And the terror barrier for you is that I don't know how. And so we didn't break through, and now we think that we can't meditate, as opposed to understanding. And I love when people really get this when I work with them for the first few times, and whatever it is that they did, like I said, Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, but meditation specifically. And you learn, I can do it anyway. I could do it sitting down. I could do it standing up. I could do it. I can do it driving. I can do it like, and I don't want to recommend that, but it happens. And when you start to understand that meditation, all that is being aware, giving concentration and focus to. So you can do that at any time, and people who are more clear have a better sense of what awareness really is and the power that it holds, are meditating more often than not, because they're able to train their focus in on the given task. That's all meditation really is. And when we start to work with our mind in that kind of way, we start to, and I talk about, I'm going to go into a little bit of the philosophy portion of the being in time. But when we talk about meditative thinking versus calculative thinking, and the calculative thinking just sort of being more of that logical, like this, again, point A to point B, let's call that the logical. Whereas meditative gives us the ability to go, how do I think point A to point B, and what does, what gives that faculty its power? What power is that, or what is behind that, or what is that faculty? Let me explore that. And sort of that pondering on that question in itself is more of the meditative, if I had to say, giving awareness to. And when we give way to that understanding and that being, something sort of magical starts to happen. So I don't want to get too caught up in that. So to really bring it back around, as I said, intuition and playful curiosity is so impactful and pivotal in spiritual growth, because all of the things that I have learned, I was doing them solo. I was doing them, like most of the spiritual things I really learned, I had to come and create my yoga routine. I had to go and pull these different aspects. Okay, the breathing aspects, I had to learn which were for me. So I learned and had to read different books on this and that. Tai Chi, had to learn, okay, what is the goal? And then that's where I'm going to go. But within that, there's certain things, if you learn from a specific teacher, they may tell you that you can only practice it like this. You learn from another one, they're going to teach you a different way. Same thing if you learn Reiki. Like I said, I got that understanding of alternative healing from doing a past life regression meditation myself. I was just trying it out, and again, I came out of it, and I was like, oh, I already knew how to do this. But within that, you still have to find out how to do certain things further. You either have to go and tap back into self or your guides, or your other guides through books, through all of the research that we have available in this kind of plane. And so I always say your best teacher is really going to be your intuition and that playful curiosity, because I was doing things with Tai Chi that I just sort of made up, but they felt so right. And that's really what I'm getting at. You want to incorporate things into your routine or that workout, that diet that you are desiring or creating and intentional about. If you go into the gym, you need to know, are you working on the upper body? Are you working on your arms? Are you working on your legs? Are you doing cardio? And from there, then you go, okay, and you may need to try out some machines, but first you're gonna look at the display and go, okay, I think that's a target area that I want. After you work out on it, then you start to feel like this feels right. And it's the same thing when you meditate, when you do Tai Chi, when you work with tarot cards, when you do any of these things, they're all about intention. Whether or not, anybody who is trying to introduce you to them explains that to us, but that is, life has nothing without intention. So that is the essence of number 5. Intuition and playful curiosity will be your best practice guide, will be the best way that you develop your routine in any kind of spiritual diet or practice that you are deciding to take. Number 6, life is a cycle. Repeating and transcending means any experience or level. So may be or seem similar, but will always incorporate a new aspect. So this is exactly what I meant when I started off and I said, I hope that this episode is able to transcend and go past just for the spiritual beginner. I want this, I made this because that's how I felt when I wish I had this kind of video and I saw this when I started off my spiritual journey. But I hope that it also reaches that intermediate and that other spiritualist who has been in the game for quite some time, and so that they can look at it and look at each of these different aspects on that beginner level, intermediate level, and even see, like, this is how I would have probably thought of it back then. This is how I think of it now. And how can I actually work with it in a way that transcends where I'm at right now, so I can get a more full context or understanding of life being that cycle and what that even means and why that even happens. It's going up I think we talked about this before, or the snake that eats his own tail. It's like going up the stairs from 0 all the way up to 9, and then level 10 is really you hitting back at the base, and now we're starting back over the same staircase, but yet there's different things on the staircase now, or the staircase may have different stuff. There's just going to be different aspects of the same exact thing. And so understanding that can help us understand, okay, at this point, it's just like the sun when it rises and then it sets. We can start to understand where we need to be within the cycle and how we can utilize that cycle to actually help us progress this eternal journey. Number 7, spirituality is yours to define, and this relates to number 5 very heavily. Your relationship to life will define this for you. So spirituality is yours to define. I like this already. And your relationship to life will define this for you. This is very similar to number 5, and where we said that intuition and playful curiosity will help us determine, will be our best practice guide. If spirituality is ours to define, then let me start off where I would for me. The spirituality to me means like of life, essence, isness. And so to me, when we talk about spirituality, all these things are really a derivative of life, or an expression of life, an aspect of life. And just as much as, like, that's what religion is an aspect of, it's like theology is trying to explain the essence of what we're talking about, actually, and that's what of spirituality. And so that is, I've read that definition, but I've also had to experience that definition in multiple ways to understand that that is a definition that I can go with, or that explains pretty accurately to me, depending on your level of awareness, what it means to me, for what spirituality means to me. It's it's the same for you, and it's going to be the same for you. And again, depending on where you're at in your awareness, you may go, oh, well, okay, maybe that makes sense, or oh, that doesn't make sense, or well, that also doesn't incorporate or explain, da 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 da. But again, depending on your level of awareness is going to be where you're going to be able to, and the level of intensity to of how much you accept or reject what I just said. But again, it's yours to define. You may be able to take that definition and incorporate it into one for you, and then go, well, okay, now this makes more sense. I can take a little bit of this, but leave that. So, and I think that's the important thing about it. Your relationship to life is going to define what spirituality means for you. I understand all is a derivative of life. And so, again, for me, if spirituality equals life, then all is a derivative of life and reflective of and expressing the nature of life, just in a different aspect. And so that's why that definition makes sense for me. All right. And to actually go back to to the one that came before that, life is a cycle. You have to go around that so many times to really start to integrate that, and then to actually feel what that means on multiple different levels, really. And so, sorry, I got cut out. So to go into the next, or number 8, at times it will be lonely and isolating. Many others it will be rewarding, providing solace. Loneliness is paramount to learning and embracing the difference. I love this one. I actually just explained it, and I love the explanation, but didn't have enough storage, so you got erased. But I love this one because it shows the difference between understanding really the connotation that we put on loneliness. It can be isolating, or it can be solace, and we can actually turn isolation into solace if we learn how to have a change of heart, and learn how to actually do that inner transfiguration, and learn that on many different levels it is a shift in awareness. And so I think it may sound, and a lot of times I don't want it to sound like it is morbid or melancholy, but that's the truth of it, because we all must walk our spiritual path alone, even when we have those that help us and embrace us and we are full of love. We must walk through that door no matter what. Even if it's unlocked for us, we must walk through that door. And actually walking through that door a lot of times is much more difficult and much more monumental doing so internally, as opposed to on the or within the physical realm. And so more times than not, we can't do so in this realm until we can actually do it from the inner realm. So I think that is so important. And I think that, again, loneliness being paramount to learning and embracing the difference between those two. We can't do it until we learn how to be with ourselves and learn how to turn isolation into solace either way. Number 9, the difference between knowledge and wisdom. True spirituality prioritizes wisdom, the right knowledge in application. And I already gave you guys my definition of spirituality. And so being of life, being actually in alignment with, doing right by. So wisdom being or differing in knowledge, because knowledge doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to, what are you going to do with the wrong knowledge, if I have to say it that way. And I don't even like saying it. It sounds weird saying it like that, but being in tune with knowledge that has no, let's say, purpose for you is the wrong knowledge. You need to be in alignment with what it is that you need to actually go to or be in alignment with life. And so not only that, you have to have the proper knowledge to turn that into wisdom, or for it to actually be wisdom, it needs to be in application. Wisdom is not just an understanding, but an understanding that really propels us to be in right alignment with life, with spirit, with source itself. So that's the difference between those two. And wisdom, again, let me make sure I read it how I wrote it down and had it come off. True spirituality prioritizes wisdom. I love that, because true spirituality, true alignment, true oneness, true love, and universal love, being of service to love itself, prioritizes wisdom, because you must be in right action. And in order to be in right action, you must have the right knowledge, the proper knowledge, and that proper knowledge, and all three of those put us into that force of action, to acting out for the good of the whole, or love itself. But number 10, all is one, interconnected, and our spiritual maturity reflects in our ability to realize this with gradual, expanded awareness of the mechanism, or consciousness, or the mechanism is awareness. So again, I'm gonna read that one more time, because that was powerful, and I feel like I just got shifted. All is one. Had to write that in caps. Interconnected, and our spiritual maturity reflects in our ability to realize this with gradual, expanded awareness of the mechanism of consciousness itself. Consciousness is awareness. That is the mechanism, if we have to call it that, the mechanism that makes it possible, as also is the observer. Consciousness really growing by observing itself and being aware of itself, watching itself and seeing, wow, that's how this reacts when this happens. Okay, now I just learned this. And just expanding on that, but doing it how through those cycles that we mentioned before. And so again, understanding that and utilizing, really putting all those into alignment with one another, is just really powerful in itself, as I start to think back. But really seeing it almost as a cycle also, in a sense, all of those are different understanding and aspects that I had to learn, not just at my base level of spirituality, not just on level 1, not just on 2, not on 3. I had to do it on each level. And each time that you do it, it actually builds you and gives you the foundation to go, okay, now I can actually start to be in the world with an understanding of spiritual knowledge. But then you can learn to be in the world with the actual, not just understanding of the proper spiritual knowledge. You can be within the world and putting that within proper application. And that is where we start to talk about meeting purpose. That's where initiative, really, that's how we are actually initiates into what may say, if you're an occultist, or whether you're a spiritualist, strictly a spiritualist, or you are occult wisdom. Both, again, it's depending on the connotation that you want to give these words. But all of us are initiates into life. And so when you begin to take the knowledge that you have, and actually the right knowledge, and put that in proper application with the path that you are forging and on, then we start to see how we are actually initiated into our spiritual journey. And the spiritual journey is no more than the human actually becoming its best self as the soul is, because the soul is actually within and expanding and expressing through the human form, as it is really just a vehicle. So that is really the 10 different spiritual aspects that I wish would have been shared with me at the beginning of my journey. If just somebody could have just walked past me like, here, just take these, then those are the 10 that I wish I would have known. And why? Because I feel that at each, especially when I was shifting my consciousness on multiple different levels, I feel if I had those, then I feel like some of those would have done that for me right away. And even when they did or didn't, once my paradigm shattered and I started to mold back things together, I could look at that list and go, wow, I thought I knew what you meant, but now I really know. And then again, shatter, wow. And so I think that's a really good list. I know it would have been for me as a beginner spiritualist. It is now, as you guys saw, I was feeling a little bit more tapped in and connected with the list. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Again, I said I'm keeping it a little bit short and brief as we run out of storage, but I hope you guys really enjoy write down that list and utilize it so it can help you expand on your journey. We love you guys. Health is wealth. This is Waking Wellness.